Okay, I think I'm ready. I always get into these funks where like I'm on top of filming, I pre-film like so far ahead, I'm good, and then life happens and I go weeks without filming, and then I like forget how to do it the next time I do it. Trying to set up all of this, my ring light just fell flat onto me, which was a fun experience. I only swore and threatened to kill my ring light like a little bit, and just, I'm hoping everyone stays quiet out there. I'm hoping no more lighting fixtures try to kill me. And let's get going, shall we? Hi guys, my name is Lacey of Spooky Lips and Fat Hips, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If my voice sounds funky at any point during this video, it's because I'm in desperate need of water. I've been sick for a long time, and talking a lot is gonna make my throat a little hoarse, so just bear with me. Today is a very anticipated, a much promised hand motion, dancing motions, part 2 to my fall indie palette release review. I can tell you that this one might be just a little bit longer than the last one because I think I reviewed 3 or 4 palettes the last time. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 palettes that I need to get through in this video. Whew. I'm not gonna like fully swatch every palette, but I'm gonna definitely do some swatches of each palette. I'm gonna give my thoughts on all of them because I have been using all these palettes. I think that I've thoroughly tested all of them. That's why it takes me so long to do review videos, because I don't like to half-ass anything. I like to make sure that I have fully formed opinions and have touched every shade, every formula, every texture, etc. so I can give you the best possible advice possible. That was redundant on these palettes because I know, one, people are a little weary of indie brands because for every really fantastic, I would say for every like 10 really fantastic hardworking indie brands there are in the world, there's some shady ones too that are taking advantage of people, and you hear the horror stories on like drama channels and shit. And I think sometimes, like, I guess I didn't realize how afraid of indie brands people are until people started telling me, oh, you're making me feel more comfortable to shop from indie brands. So that's interesting to me. But also with like new brands and stuff, I realize that it's like, I don't know how to phrase it. It's just kind of like you become skeptical to try new brands sometimes and to try new formulas that you might not know or might not understand. So I just try to be the best resource is the point of all of this. Before I blab anymore, I'm just gonna grab a palette and we're gonna get going. This first itty bitty little tiny cute palette that I want to talk about is the Autumn Equinox palette from the brand called Makeup Slayve, and that is Slayve spelled with a Y. I had never heard of this brand before, but I saw swatches of this particular palette on, I believe, the Instagram Indie Mood. I think it was their Instagram that I saw the swatches, and I was like, first of all, take the time to watch the leaves turn. Very cute, very on brand for me. That's a joke. These colors are fucking adorable. These are such nice colors, and I know I had recently talked about the NYX Grind palette. I think if you're bummed out that you missed out on that palette, this one might interest you just a little bit. Like I said, I'd never heard of this brand before. I saw the swatches, I was very intrigued. These are very nice shadows. There's only 3 metallics, but in a 9-pan eyeshadow palette, I don't mind that. I prefer that there is more mattes than metallics in this palette. These mattes specifically are the exact kind of matte that I tend to prefer the most if you've watched the majority of my eyeshadow review videos. It's a very dense, creamy kind of matte. It's a very pigmented matte. One might call this kind of formula dusty. It's definitely the kind of formula where you're going to get a lot of kick up when you hit your brush in. It's definitely a tapper offer kind of formula. But I like that specifically because it's very easy to blow out color very quickly, and those are the kinds of eye looks that I like to do. I'm not always the most precise person. Sometimes I just like to blow out a really intense crease color, give it a little bit of definition in the corners, throw on a shimmer, and be good. The thing that I've noticed that is a drawback with that kind of formula though is that it can get skippy and muddy if you use too many colors, and that's exactly what I found to be the problem with this palette. If I use too many of these shadows at once, the shadows start to pick up off of my eyes, or they start to like muddy too much together. And there's 2 ways you can go about fixing that. I would say, one, to have a sticky eye base. I tend to always use the Too Faced Shadow Insurance and set that with powder. I don't really like to leave my eye primer sticky. I don't know why. Or to just use less colors. Like, this is definitely a formula that I think less is more. Pick like a transition shade, a crease shade. Pick a like more defining shade. Pick a lid color. Like, you're good. You don't have to go too crazy with this. These are just some of the mattes. And I have an awful burn on my hand that I don't want to showcase in these swatches. So bear with me a moment. As you can see, super pigmented, but just that little bit of dustiness that I was talking about before. Like, I just blew off my arm and you can physically see the difference so much better. Super pretty colors though. The three metallic shades I really like because they're very smooth, a little like that wet feeling kind of metallic, which means they come off very high shine. I'm going to use this hand without the burn on it. I think that purple especially goes very well with the other colors in the palette. The blue confuses me a little bit. I wish it was a little bit more green and less blue, but that's just like a personal preference thing for me. Overall, very pleased with this palette. I think for me, I don't mind the dustiness because I like the pigmentation. So I'm willing to have that trade-off because I think these are beautiful colors. I'm excited to look more into this brand because, like I said, I had never heard about them before. This was like a spontaneous Instagram buy. Next, I want to talk about the Berlin Underground palette from the brand Nomad Cosmetics. And I feel like I can get through this one pretty quickly because this is a mostly metallic palette. There is like one true matte and then a black matte with sparkle and then like a red satiny shade. And then for me, the winner of this palette, the reason why I personally love it so much is because of all of these just beautiful, like dirty metallic shades. I don't know how else to put that. All of the metallics just kind of have a dirty undertone to them. And I know that sounds so weird to say, but I find them all so very unique and so very pretty. They also have little skulls embossed into the pans, but I've gone too hard on some of these shadows, so I'm starting to lose my little scully guys. I'm going to swatch just a few of my favorite shades so you can kind of see what I mean about this like dirty undertone that I keep referencing. I don't know how well you can see what I'm trying to say here, but they're just like smooth, beautiful metallics in really interesting colors, and I think that's just why I like this so much. I've been really liking to pair this palette with the Certified palette that I touched on in my last fall indie review palette. And like, while this doesn't look like the most special eyeshadow palette at first, I think the subtle undertone differences that you're going to get in the metallic do make this extremely special. I'm very glad I took the plunge to get this because so many of these like interesting browns I just can't really quite duplicate in my collection. Like, I have lots of coppers, I have lots of browns, I have lots of golds, but these all have just like such an interesting slight change to them, an interesting slight undertone, a little bit of a green, a little bit of a rust. I love it. I love this palette a lot. I think if you don't mind the whole all metallic thing, because I know a lot of people can't stand an all metallic palette, I went into this knowing that I was going to love these colors so much that it wouldn't matter. It's just nice. This is really nice. This is one that I actually am surprised at how much attention this got on my Instagram when I posted pictures of this. This is the Majestic eyeshadow palette from the Makeup Shack. The Makeup Shack is a brand that I discovered on Instagram. I have another one of their palettes that I just randomly found. So I kept following their page, and then they showed pictures of this palette, and I fell absolutely head over heels in love with these colors. This palette is ridiculously affordable. I believe it's like $18. I know it's definitely under $20, and you're getting a lot of product for that. And you're getting very well performing shadows for the price. I know a couple people were saying, like on my Instagram comments, that they were weary to try this brand. One, because they had never heard of them, and two, because for the price, sometimes a good shadow is almost too good to be true. These are really, really nice. These are like, again, if you missed out on one of those NYX palettes and those were your colors, think about this one. It has kind of those similar kind of tones in their metallics that I was talking about in the Nomad Cosmetic palette, where everything kind of has a slightly dirty undertone to it. I really like that accent of the bright yellow though. I think it ties a lot of these colors together. What is the most impressive about this palette though for me is the mattes. I find these mattes to be very, very, very easy to work with. It's a little bit of a drier formula, but not a real dry formula. It still has a little bit of that slickness that I like, but I just find while they're not the most pigmented shadows, you can build them up to be pigmented. You can be very specific with your placement. You don't have to worry about these shadows like getting away from you or blowing out too much or like losing control of your color placement because of how specific these stay, if that makes sense. I think if you really were like searching for an affordably priced fall colored palette, this could be one that I could easily recommend for you, I should say. The only downside is I think a lot of people are going to be turned off by the pan size because I know we're all kind of staring towards more small pan palettes, and these are the kinds of pans that you're never going to get through ever unless you're using this palette every single day of your life. These mattes don't swatch bad to me though. I think this is very reflective of the performance. Next, I want to talk about the palette that I'm actually wearing on my eyes today, because this is the one that I'm the most apprehensive to talk about. This is the Grunge palette from Give Me Glow Cosmetics. And Give Me Glow is a brand that I've raved about a lot on my channel. They make one of my absolute favorite eyeshadow formulas. And the reason I say that is because the pigmentation of their shadows is like out of this world ridiculous. Just gonna quickly demonstrate my point. That they make ridiculously pigmented eyeshadows. Similarly though to that Makeup Slayve palette, also very dusty, very kick-uppy. The second you tap your brush into this palette, shadow. And it's definitely one where you're going to want to tap out your brush. I also really love the two metallic shades that were chosen for this palette because they go very well with all of the colors. While there's only two metallics, I love that they have like a slightly gray, slightly taupey undertone to them, which really ties the whole grungy thing together in my opinion. Those are the two metallics and I just think that they're so freaking beautiful. But, like I said, I'm very apprehensive to talk about this palette because this may be my least favorite Give Me Glow palette that I've ever personally tried. The reason I say that is because I find these colors, I find this palette to be, these shadows, to be very difficult to control. This is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today. And normally I take my glasses off and show you guys a close-up of my makeup, but I really hate how my eye makeup turned out today. And every time I've used this palette, I just don't like how my eye makeup turns out. And that is because the colors get away from you very easy. And they get very skippy. And because everything's so dark and grungy, it's literally a grunge palette, everything muddies together. So for instance, I have this shade on my lower lash line, but you would never be able to tell because it starts to look exactly like this shade once it's blended out. And I tried to deepen it up with this shade on the outer corners, but then that blew out way too far that I wanted. And it's just like, I've had this issue every single time I've used this palette, and I haven't really had this experience with past Give Me Glow palettes, even though those palettes have been as equally pigmented as these. And I think for me, I'm just losing sight of what this palette is. It's the grunge palette. For me, a grungy look is a not specific look. It's a messy look. It's a dark look. So I think if that's truly what you're looking for, if you're looking, similarly to how I mentioned for the Makeup Slayve palette that you should use very few colors, this is a palette that I think you should use like 3 colors tops. You should use like a blown out crease shade, one defining shade, and a lid shade. Done. Like, I feel like the more colors you use, the more problems you're going to run into. And I think this is something where you really need to take advantage of small brushes, small placements, and just very, like, small strokes. Like, I really feel like this is a palette that you need to take your time, not rush with, and just use as much precision as you can, because if not, like I referenced earlier, the eye look's just going to get away from you real fast. And again, like anyone who watches all of my eyeshadow videos knows that I am a die-hard Give Me Glow supporter, and I want to love this palette so much, but I just find it like messy. I think that's the best word that I can use. I can't get the control over these shadows that I would like to have, but it's very pretty. nonetheless. And the thing I love about Give Me Glow is that they do this like pick 4 shade quad deals every once in a while. So if there's colors you like from this palette, but you're maybe apprehensive about buying the whole thing because again, the large eyeshadow thing, you'll never hit pan ever, take advantage of their quads. Pick some of these and throw them in a quad because you can't beat the pigmentation. You just can't. And the metallics especially are out of this world. I just think this wasn't the best fit for me for the kinds of eye looks that I like to do. If you want your eyeshadow to be messy and grungy because this is a grunge palette, you'll probably have better luck with it than I have. And the last 2 palettes I want to touch on are some very hyped up palettes here on YouTube and just on Instagram, just in general. People have been really wanting me to talk about these. So I think I'm going to go with Strobe first and end with Makeup Menagerie. This is the Strobe Cosmetics Divinity palette. And it is so fucking beautiful. I just noticed I've been looking at my viewfinder a lot during this video. I think it's just because I haven't been used to filming in a while and I'm just starting to get in the swing of things. I apologize. First of all, can I just say that this purple is the purple to end all purples. It is so stunning. I love all of these shades so much. This Oshun color, this mustard, is so good. Milda, this gorgeous almost like mildew color, so good. Freya, it's just Aphrodite is such a great coral. I was gonna say corally peach. It's not. There's like no peach in it at all. It's a coral. This is such a good color selection. Well, I think I personally do prefer the Creepy Q palette just because those colors are so unique to my collection. I still hold this just like toe to toe with that palette because the formula is so great. I think the last time I reviewed a Strobe palette, I called their formula like the eyeshadow. I called their formula the texture of pudding. Like if an eyeshadow was pudding, and I stand by that. I stand by that because they're just such an interesting, thick density. Like the density of these shadows don't compare to any other shadow I've ever tried. I find these swatches kind of suck, but these are very pigmented shadows, and I find them extremely easy to work with. I don't have any kind of skipping problem. I find they blend so smoothly, that they work well with each other, that this is such an interesting color selection. I'm so happy with this palette. I think if you even, like, I recommend the Creepy Q palette so much, and I definitely recommend this one as well. My thoughts on Creepy Q definitely are echoed in this one. And then finally, I want to talk about the Feral palette from Makeup Menagerie. Is it Makeup Menagerie? Is it Menagerie Cosmetics? I keep wanting to say Makeup Menagerie because it was Makeup Monsters. Still getting used to that because I'm wearing actually a Makeup Monsters lip today. So for those of you who don't know, Menagerie Cosmetics is the now rebranded Makeup Monsters. So Makeup Monsters rebranded into Menagerie Cosmetics. They went from that whole like spooky kid theme to a more animal focused theme again. The word is theme. And they donated a proceed of all of their profits to animal organizations, and all of their products have been animal themed. They carried over their Dragon Child palette from Makeup Monsters. They're getting ready to release some liquid lips again in the start of the new year. They said they're going to bring back old colors along with new colors. And they also released this Feral palette, which has such a beautiful cover. Oh my gosh. If you open up the palette, and all of the shadows inside are magnetic, which is why this palette feels so freaking heavy. And we're covering up this row. My thoughts are going to echo a lot of other people's thoughts on YouTube. These colors are stunning and interesting and amazing and very well reflected in the cover. I love this. I really cannot stand this bottom row. I don't think like any of these shadows were necessary. Especially maybe this one. These 3 bottom shades are so similar to each other that it actually kind of drives me crazy that they're in this palette. Because I really personally would have liked another purple maybe. Maybe even like a light blue, because I feel like this fox on the front, I think it's a fox, this fox on the front, maybe it's a wolf, has a little bit of a blue tinge to it, so that blue would have been nice. I hate that they felt the need to include some like blob browns just to make the palette seem cohesive, because I just think These colors are spectacular. Performance-wise, again, kind of like the Strobe palette, my thoughts very much echo the Dragon Child palette, which I loved so much. I loved the Dragon Child palette. I'm talking so fast, I'm getting marbles in my mouth. They also, one problem I had though is they only have 2 metallics and the rest of the palette is a matte palette. I would have liked more metallics as well. I don't know why they're so afraid to put more metallics in their palette, but the swatch thing is getting ridiculous. But the colors that were chosen are very pretty. These mattes are so nicely pigmented to the point where they're gonna stain your brushes and possibly your eyelids, because the Dragon Child, especially the blues, definitely stain my lids and my brushes. I've had the same problem with like the oranges have stained, and this purple has stained a little bit, this pink has stained a little bit, but nothing that's like tragic. I don't mind because they're beautiful shadows. They do not swatch the best, and neither did Dragon Child. So it's one of those situations where a swatch isn't going to tell you a lot about the performance of these shadows. But overall, minus my beef with these 3 shadows specifically, this is a great palette. This is really, really nice. This is very bright. This is very vivid. I love it so much. I love the pink that was chosen specifically. I think this is my favorite shade in the palette because I don't have a lot of things like this elsewhere. I'm gonna say it, I still miss Makeup Monsters. For as nice as Menagerie Cosmetics has been seeming so far, I know they're gonna be doing smaller palettes in the future that are themed about, like, they're all themed towards different animals, and I saw a whale themed palette. I think the palette's gonna be called Whale Song coming out next year. I'm very excited for that. There's still just a tiny part of me that misses Makeup Monsters. I can't help it. I'm a weird kid. They appeal to the weird kids. I missed it a little bit, but I'm excited that they're bringing their lipsticks back. I'm excited that they're expanding on the eyeshadows because it's such a great formula. And I'm excited to see where they go. I really hope that this rebranding is working out for them, because when I made my video last time about like being sad about Makeup Monsters, they left me a comment on that video about how they felt like they had no choice but to rebrand just for the future of the company. And it really like hurt my heart, and I hope that they're doing better. I really do. I'm excited to keep supporting them because I think they make killer products. And that is yet another round of indie eyeshadow palettes reviewed quickly. I know in the future I have a Morphe roundup coming up. I also have that rainbow indie palette roundup that I had been promising you guys for a while. So definitely keep a lookout, because I'm not stopping these like kind of quicker, faster review videos anytime soon. I actually kind of like doing them that way, because like I've said a million times, sometimes my thoughts about a palette don't extend more than like, I like these colors, these blend nicely. Like sometimes I just don't have a lot to say that I could make a whole video out of something. I don't know. Were there any one of these palettes that stuck out to you specifically? Are there any that you own, you agree with me about, that you disagree with me about? Are there any palettes that maybe I had some issues with that you found ways to work around those issues? Talk to us all down below. If you like eyeshadow palettes, if you like reviews, if you like me, please hit like and subscribe. Also make sure to check out my Instagram, which is also Spookless and Fat Hips, because that's where I am if I am not on YouTube. Also definitely check out my Patreon that is newly launched, that I hopefully either am about to get a Patreon exclusive video on soon, or have already gotten a Patreon exclusive video on. That's where I keep all my spooky things. And other than that, talk to me down below, and yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys!